Well, hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV. And wow, what's been happening? David Icke has been banned from Australia. Yeah, it came out of the blue. It was incredible. Now, this has been on the cards for a while. There was some talk a couple of weeks ago about, well, David shouldn't be in Australia. Some people there were telling the government, appealing to the government to actually ban him, to cancel his visa, so he couldn't get into Australia. Getting an Australian visa is normally quite easily. I did it myself. It was a long time ago now. In fact, almost 20 years ago now, I got myself an Australian visa to go to Australia, and didn't have any problem with it. David originally didn't have any problem with it. He's been to Australia now 10 times since 1997. He goes there regularly on tours. And well, there was a lot of fuss about it a couple of weeks ago. Nothing came of it, so we all just assumed, well, it's okay, he's in the clear, there'll be no problems. And then boom, just a couple of days ago it was announced David Icke is now not going to be going to Australia. It was announced literally hours before David was due to actually board a plane to take him to Melbourne for the first stop on this tour of his. For those of you familiar with Australia's geography, it's a continental nation, mostly uninhabited. There's large centres of human population around the coastline, which are a series of big cities. And he was going to go to all of those big cities, and he was going to do a talk there. And he now can't do it. He's banned from the country. It's absolutely ridiculous. He did a little video about it. He'd done a couple of videos about this, and several other people made videos about it. So I thought that I should as well. I mean, the question is, this is the question. I mean, is David Icke evil? Because it seems everyone thinks he's evil, apart from, well, me and you guys who watch. It's let's just have a look at let's look at the media, how they're covering it, because I've got some media sources you might be interested in. Now, what I'm really pleased about in this video is that I get to do my Guardian voice. I couldn't do it in the. I wanted to do the Guardian voice in the Project Blue Book video, but I couldn't, because the Guardian did not stoop to and demean itself to review Project Blue Book. You know, UFOs are just a myth from the capitalist patriarchy, man, or something like that. So I get to do my Guardian voice this time. As you see, this is the Guardian here, and it has a special page under the category of anti-Semitism. It's actually categorised this story, as you can see, under anti-Semitism. Conspiracy theorist David Icke hits back after Australia revokes visa. The former British footballer and sports broadcaster just hours away from boarding flight for a speaking tour. Conspiracy theorist David Icke has blasted the immigration minister, David Coleman. It's not the sports commentator, I should add, because there's a famous British sports commentator called David Coleman, who I'm sure David knew, because he worked for TV sports journalism at the same time. For revoking his visa just hours before boarding a flight to Australia for his March speaking tour. Icke, a former footballer and sports broadcaster, best known for his theory that the world is run by a cabal of giant shape-shifting lizards. Yeah, so, and it just says that. It doesn't say why it's not true. Has claimed Jewish people bankrolled Hitler.
caused the 2008 global financial crisis and staged the 9/11 terrorist attacks. No, he didn't. David never claimed that Jewish people did all those things. He claimed that lots of people did those things. Some of them were Jewish, some of them weren't. He actually did an interview on Australian TV, which was an absolute car crash. I discussed it and reviewed it in in the latest edition of Third Rail Radio yesterday. It also came up on the Mindset podcast, so you can go and check those out on the website if you like, the panel website. Anyway, on Wednesday, Icke issued a statement claiming he had been the victim of a smear campaign from politicians who've been listening to special interest groups. Well, that's true. That's exactly what happened. After community groups, including the Anti-Defamation Commission and the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, called on the government to revoke his visa. What's meant by community groups? It's not put in quote marks. It's here in as normal. I mean, if you check the description box, I've got a background link where I have all the details of this, which you can check out. And it's the word community groups is not actually in quotes. What is meant by community groups exactly? It covers a multitude of sins, that does. You could call the IRA a community group, couldn't you? Anyway, Icke said that his visa issued in September has now been thrown out at the last hour, blaming Coleman for a decision he said also cited his views on vaccinations and global warming. Alright, so he's got an opinion on vaccinations and global warming. Presumably it's an incorrect opinion, is it not? Well, let him go on a stage and make a fool of himself then. He's open to debate, he's open to discussion. The very best way to deal with bad ideas is to diffuse them with good ideas. Or is it possible, I think if they may be afraid, what Coleman is afraid of, if he's kicking Icke out for his views on vaccination and global warming, is that David Icke's information is actually not bad, it's actually true, it's good, it's true information. Quoting from the decision, Icke rejected the view that his tour poses a risk to the health and safety and good order of the Australian community, or a segment of the Australian community, man. Icke said he'd been to Australia 10 times since 1997 without incident. That's true. And he was not even going to mention the Jewish community to his audiences in Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, Hobart and Sydney. Well, he doesn't. He doesn't actually mention... The only time he actually mentioned Jews, I think, in his speeches, when he pointed out that it was a Jewish friend of his in London, a Jewish friend of his, who funded the publication of one of his books. So obviously this is another self-hating Jew, is it? David Icke, the chairman of the ADC, thanks Coleman for heeding our call and declaring in a loud voice that anti-Semites and Holocaust deniers will never find a home in Australia. Well, look, David Icke is not an anti-Semite, and he's not a Holocaust denier. He actually said this out loud in as many words on this interview, this TV interview. Anyway, this David Icke person, any relation to Roman, I doubt it, allowing Icke into our country would have crossed red lines, my goodness, what are the other 10 times you let him in? And would have sent the message that it is open season on the Jewish community and that vilifying and maligning Australian Jews is okay and normal. Really? Well, when has David vilified and maligned Australian Jews, or any kind of Jews, before? You're banning a harmless person, you don't care. Abramovich also thanked Kate Ashmore, the Liberal candidate for McNamara, who, along with the Labour candidate Josh Burns, has campaigned for the cancellation of Icke's visa. Right, if any Australian listeners or viewers who are in McNamara constituency, please deselect these people. Vote for someone else other than this Kate Ashmore and Josh Burns person. Abramovich said, "This is a glorious victory for all Australians who believe in the core values of respect and tolerance." Well, no, you don't. You're not respecting David Icke. You're not tolerating his opinions. And then I'll go back to the Guardian text now. Icke denies being an anti-Semitic and a Holocaust denier, and he has never advocated for Holocaust denial to be taught in schools. Icke has long been the subject of controversy in Australia, man, where immigration department retains a broad discretion to deny or revoke visas on character grounds. At last, he last toured the country in 2016. And what happened there? Who got killed? How many pogroms were there? Eh? None at all. And it goes on to, I won't read this out, but it goes on to mention that Gavin McGuinness of the Proud Boys, he was banned. He spoke at the Day for Freedom, if you remember that video. And Lauren Southern as well, who was banned from Britain. And she was banned from Britain for actually speaking out and making a documentary about the fact that white people in South Africa are being exterminated. If you remember my South African Farms live stream. Icke said that the cancellation of his visa sets a dangerous precedent for citizens who have differing views and are willing to openly expose those. Well, you see, it's not a precedent as such now. The precedent, I think, was for McGuinness and Southern. It's Icke is a part of what's happened since then. Anyway, David goes on. This is the creation of a blatantly Orwellian totalitarian state. So this is David talking, even though I'm doing my Guardian voice. Sorry. I'll read this out without the Guardian voice because this is David speaking. This sets a dangerous precedent for citizens who have differing views and are willing to openly express these. This is the creation of a blatantly Orwellian totalitarian state, and says the government believes they have the right to dictate what the nation can and cannot choose to hear. Well, that's true, isn't it? That's true. Oh, here's another article. Now, there's a follow-on article here called "How David Icke Helps Unite Labour's Factions Against Anti-Semitism" by Rachel Shabby. What's that? All right. Rachel, the conspiracy theorists may have succeeded where others failed in building the momentum to tackle anti-Semitism. That's this one here, this article here. Oh, blimey. Right. Where are we going? Last week, a new report found that 60% of the British public believe in at least one conspiracy theory. That's true. I'm actually going to do I've already got a plan for a video all about that coming up very soon. Actually, I might actually save this. I'll read a bit more, but I won't read everything because I want to keep it perhaps for the future. But anyway, the results of a 6-year study spanning 9 countries report showed conspiracy belief is higher among both Trump and Brexit supporters. Yes, exactly. Because it's true. Entirely coincidentally, a small cross-party Labour group, including the Jewish Labour Movement, Socialists Against Anti-Semitism, protested against the David Icke show in Watford, part of the tour. Yeah, you see, I knew someone who went to that, actually, and it wasn't, I'd say a protest, it was actually quite civil. They handed out leaflets, they didn't cause any trouble. But there's been others that have been a lot more aggressive, and that's why David has had to not to reveal where his shows are going to be. Yeah, and it goes on here, and it talks about the Marlon Solomon article. Oh dear, I mean, I don't know how many of you actually read the Herpan Voice blog, but I've already actually talked about that. Maybe I'll do another show about it. But the thing is, if I do another video about this, it'll just be a kind of like Jews Part 2. But it's just basically this guy Marlon Solomon, who lives in Manchester, has slagged off David in his article called Half Chips, Half Rice, in his magazine called Half Chips, Half Rice. He's got a blog, basically. And has called, well, he said all kinds of horrible things about David, which is basically what loads of people have been saying about David since the early 1990s, when he came out of the tinfoil hat closet. I mean, it's the Guardian actually that kicked this off, because in one of David's books, I think it's The Robots Rebellion, David talks about how in 1993 he was doing a talk when he first started talking about conspiracies, and this journalist from the Guardian showed up. He stayed in he kept going out to talk on his mobile phone and coming back in again. He only spent about 5 minutes watching David's talk. Then he went away and he wrote an article for the Guardian, which was illustrated by a picture of Adolf Hitler at a rally doing his Nazi salute, with David Icke's face embossed onto where Hitler's face was. Oh dear. Anyway, I think I might tackle this the rest of this particular article in an upcoming video, which I've already got planned, which is going to be about how to stop conspiracy theorists. That's it. Anyway, I keep having to come back to the Guardian, but I really despise the Guardian. I think my tolerance for degenerate mainstream media publications has dropped in the last couple of years, or this could be because the said publications are getting worse, or it could be because my internal tolerance level is dropping. Probably a combination of the two. But the Guardian is absolutely toxic. It's absolutely repugnant. It's I honestly I sometimes get afraid that I will die from soy poisoning just looking at the banner. Now let's talk a bit more about this, because an Australian person has actually commented on this. It is the aforementioned Angry Aussie. He actually came up in the comments reply video, the last one I did, and he's a sort of Australian left winger, and I do subscribe to him. As I said, I follow and listen to all kinds of people, and he did a hangout with Kevin Logan, who's another British leftist, and he's an anti-MRA sort of male feminist type person, Stockholm syndrome I call that. But anyway, the Angry Aussie, as you see, has commented. I commented on this particular video, which is just called a live hangout with Kevin Logan (brackets mirror), because it was originally on Kevin's channel. And I said here, because they were talking about Australia, they didn't mention David Icke, but they were talking about Australia and about the state of basic politics there, and about the danger from fascism and things like that. And I put here, let David Icke into Australia. And as you see, the Angry Aussie has replied underneath, I don't give a shit about Icke. So, well, other people do, Aussie. Other people do. That's the point. There was a petition to try and get the Australian government to overturn their decision to ban David from Australia. It demanded 60,000 signatures. It got them within a few hours. I actually got my signature on there just before the petition was full and then therefore closed. That's how many people want to see David Icke in Australia. That's how urinated off people are with this endless censorship. Right, and now we come on to Hope Not Hate, which I think really ought to be renamed Hate Not Hope. They got it the wrong way around. This is described as an advocacy group based in the United Kingdom that campaigns against racism and fascism, and seeks to combine first-class research with community organising and grassroots action to defeat hate groups at elections and build community resilience against extremism. And the founder is a guy who is actually the former editor of Searchlight, which is not to be confused with Spotlight, Spotlight was actually a very good magazine. It was a conspiratorial magazine edited by Jim Tucker, Big Jim, who used to invade Bilderberg group meetings. Searchlight is like, well, basically, this is an anti-fascist organisation, Hope Not Hate, and it has a podcast which I do listen to. It's kind of one of my guilty pleasures. But they did actually bring up David Icke on the last podcast, and I posted a rather angry comment on Facebook, which is a brief summary of basically what I'm talking about in this film. Anyway, Hope Not Hate have actually published and they've published several magazines and journals, and one of them is something they call The State of Hate, which I think is annual. It's I think maybe more than annual. I don't know, but I know that it has there's a lot of they have various things, reports they bring out about people, and they run through a load of different individuals, and they've got a section. You can actually download this for free from their website. It's called The State of Hate. Just go to Hope Not Hate website. You download it. It's a PDF. Doesn't cost anything. And it gives you a list of... It basically slags off a load of people. They've actually got a page on... They've got a page about Nick Colostrum as well, which I won't tackle now. That's a story for another time. But they've got a page. It's page 77, where they have this thing called Group Review Conspiracy Theorists. And no, I'm not on there. Now, I first heard about this when I watched Morgoth's review, because there's an alt-right YouTuber called Morgoth, which I watch. As I said, I do watch people I don't necessarily agree with. I mean, he does make a lot of good points. I don't agree with every word he says, but he makes some good points. I actually watch. There's some Marxists I actually watch on as well. I watched Kevin Logan. So just because I watch somebody like this doesn't mean I necessarily agree with everything they say. But Morgoth is in this particular publication himself, and it's also. And I went and looked at it, and I saw that David Icke is in here. Here we go. Now, what does the hope not hate voice sound like, do you think? Probably just like the Guardian voice, I would say. What do you reckon? Tell you what, if you don't like it, post in chat box about how I might be able to change it. Post in the comment section about how I might be able to change it. But anyway, here's David Icke, right? All right, yeah, the Guardian voice. David Icke, YouTube subscribers 561,100. YouTube views 77 million. Well, that's good. And they put this up as a kind of warning, don't they? But I think it's pretty good. You notice they have got Richie Allen as well, which I'll leave because I know Richie. I know him, and he's a good guy. I was on his show once, I think. Yeah, briefly. I was on with somebody else. But anyway, David Icke, the world-famous conspiracy theorist and anti-Semite man. I'm doing a kind of exaggerated Guardian voice, because I think Hope Not Hate are kind of distilled Guardian readers, basically. He continued to tour in 2018 promoting his book, Everything You Need to Know But Have Never Been Told, including selling out at the 1,600-seat Southport Theatre and Convention Centre. Yes! Good. And it says, however, he suffered a blow when his show in Leicester, the city of his birth, was cancelled by the venue. They did, actually. Excuse me. They cancelled the one in Manchester as well. It was bloody awful. Icke's European dates include Oslo in Norway, man. Helsinki in Finland, Copenhagen in Denmark. Hey! David spoke in Copenhagen. Just think, I could have gone to see him when I was over there. If it had been at the same time, I could have sort of, if the UFO Denmark had invited me another time, I could have gone to see David Icke. Yeah. We go Budapest in Hungary and Wrocław in Poland during October before returning to the UK for more dates, man. Icke's event in Watford in November received protests from anti-racist activists. Well, the protests, like I say, luckily they were lackluster, people just handing out leaflets. Well, I actually don't have a problem with that kind of protest. I mean, handing out leaflets is absolutely fine. That's exercising your right to free speech as much as David Icke is. It's when they start throwing bottles and hurling abuse and spitting on people, that's when I have a problem. And that's what anti-fascists sometimes do. So-called anti-fascists. But yeah, these anti-racist activists, they were a coalition from the Labour Party, I think. Anyway, despite many on the left waking up to the sheer extent of the anti-Semitism in Icke's theories. Really? The sheer extent of the anti-Semitism in Icke's theories. Is this the bit where David Icke says Jews are not responsible for the New World Order? Or is it the bit where he says Jews are the New World Order is not the work of Jews? Or is he when he uses the word "not"? Is he really saying, actually, I'm really saying that Jews are behind the New World Order? You see what I mean? It's like David is absolutely unequivocal about this. It's as clear as black and white. Jews are not to be blamed for the New World Order. So where's the anti-Semitism? Anyway, he received some positive coverage in the press. A Daily Express article was entitled, Crikey, Icke got it righty. David Icke says the EU wants centralised power and the death of nations. Well, yes, they do. That's exactly what the EU wants. Anyway, the article argued that Mr. Icke's straight-talking broadcast from Margate Beach seemed to nail what the British people demand from Brexit, with their clarity and passion entirely absent from Parliament since the Brexit referendum itself. Well, yes. That's true. I saw David's show in Newcastle, as readers of the Panwo Voice blog will know. And yeah, he did. He talked more sense about Brexit than anyone else ever seen in mainstream politics. In December, Icke again received news coverage after the American novelist Alice Walker wrote an endorsement for his 1995 book And the Truth Shall Set You Free for the New York Times. The book contains numerous instances of anti-Semitism. Oh my god, have you actually read And the Truth Shall Set You Free? How many people have actually read it? There's not one little bit of anti-Semitism in it. Not one little bit. I've read that book about 3 times. I promise you that's the case. And Alice Walker, no doubt Alice Walker is now being castigated and abused. I think I don't know what has she actually been kicked off the New York Times? Has she actually been? I'll just check actually. Thank goodness for Google and pause button. Okay, now wait for it. Yeah, I've paused for a moment. Alice Walker is black. She's also she is a self-described feminist, although she's probably not if she supports David Icke. She wrote the book The Colour Purple, which was made into a fabulous film, a very moving film starring Whoopi Goldberg. I've never read the book, but the film is superb. She's 75 years old, she's black, and she is has been involved in the civil rights movement. She's met Martin Luther King. She has done all these sort of things. She's opposed the Iraq War. Who are these people actually criticising? Who are they actually abusing? That's the question. Now the interesting thing is, she has been criticised for what she wrote in the New York Times, whereas one of the New York Times' favourite upcoming budding journalists is someone called Sarah Jong, who has said the most awful things. She's talked about how white people are easy, so white people are evil, moaning about cruel old white men, and are white people genetically predisposed to evil, various evil things. She uses the hashtag cancel white people. She says white people marking up the internet with their opinions are like dogs urinating on fire hydrants. Now this person, I don't know how to describe her, it is a disgusting person, is permitted to work at the New York Times, whereas Alice Walker is probably now, I bet she's now off the, she's probably now off it. I bet you they never published another thing by Alice Walker. Goodness gracious me. Who are Hope Not Hate criticising exactly? Who are they actually, what are they actually claiming here? Do they even look at what the people are saying and who is saying it and why they're saying it? Anyway, let's go back to Hate Not Hope. Icke now has 560,000 YouTube subscribers, 77,000 Facebook likes, and 195,000 followers on Twitter. Yeah, which is more than what you're going to get, aren't you, Hope Not Hate? I must actually say I do follow Hope Not Hate on Twitter. You know what they say, friends close, enemies closer. Anyway, prospects for 2019. Icke will continue to be the most significant figure spreading conspiratorial anti-Semitism in the UK. Yeah, that's right. He's going to do more lectures explaining how Jews are not responsible for the New World Order. In the new year, he plans to take his paranoid bigotry to Australia. Yeah, with events in Melbourne, Adelaide. Yeah, well, of course, since this came out, we know now that that's not going to happen. And then they talk about the film Renegade, which I will mention in a minute myself.
So there you have it. David Icke is evil, according to the Garidian and to Hope Not Hate. It's just insane what's happened in this world. We have this hegemony, this quasi-Marxist, postmodern hegemony, which is taking over everything. It's taking over the entire intellectual sphere of the world, and now the political world as well. And it is doing whatever the hell it likes to people it doesn't agree with. It's banning them from venues, it's getting them banned from countries, it's even arranging things such as having them losing their jobs, or even killing now, and people have died as a result of mob violence by anti-fascists, these shock troops, these SJWs, who are just a bunch of stupid kids. I mean, you look at them, they're very young, average age, teens, early 20s. So we cannot pretend there's any freedom in this world now if this sort of thing goes on. You can't pretend that. As for David, I mean, there was a time when this has always been a problem for David, ever since he first came out as a tinfoil hat wearing loony like me. And indeed I talked about how there was The Guardian itself played a crucial role in smearing him and assassinating his character from the early days right up to the present day of his conspiratorial career. See, I mean, I knew David Icke. We all knew him. He was famous in Britain. He has been for my whole life. I knew him well. He was originally a footballer, as you heard. He used to play for several teams, only for 2 seasons. Then he got arthritis, and that was awful for him. But when I first came across him, he was a sports journalist. He did all kinds of programs, including children's programs like Saturday Superstore. He used to do sports reports for that. He worked for the BBC for all those years. And then he had his Kundalini moment, his spiritual awakening. And I remember that very well too, because I saw it through the lens of the mainstream media. And I believed every word of it. I didn't see the Wogan show, but I did see him on several other programs talking about his new ideas, which were his revelatory spiritual matters that he discovered. And he wrote some books which I went on to read later, The Truth Vibrations and many, many others. And he was turned into a national laughingstock, and I laughed along with everybody else. I clearly remember sitting in the porter's lodge. I was a new porter in those days. I had not been in there long, a couple of years, and they just said, "Hey, that David Icke, he thinks he's the son of God. He's lost his marbles." And I said, "Yeah, he has." And that's the last I heard or saw anything about David Icke until about 2000. So that you're talking the whole decade where I never even heard or saw or thought about him at all, because he was completely out of the mainstream. And then I came across him again once I started getting on the internet, and I started getting onto various publications and things like that, and various things such as documentaries to do with conspiracies, because I was getting into the conspiratorial worldview by then. By the late 90s, I myself was in a sort of waking up state, conspiratorial awakening, and spiritual too. And I came across David Icke. I actually saw that awful documentary by John Ronson, The Lizards and the Jews, which covers a lot of what I just been talking about, which was in the year 2000 in Canada when he toured there. Basically, he went through exactly the same shit as he is now. It seems like it comes in waves. Like I said, it sort of like peaks and it troughs and it peaks and it troughs. Because of the Brexit Trump phenomenon, it seems to be peaking at the moment. As I said, the left have been galvanised by 2016. They have been galvanised by the Brexit Trump phenomenon. For them, they see it as the rise of evil and the destruction. Basically, they think we're going back to the Nazi days and things like this. Which is why this is happening now. But anyway, David, the documentary was terrible. It didn't even mention any of David's ideas. It just did once. It recorded David lecturing and lambasting a TV producer who just banned him from his show, his news program. And he said, "If you think millions of children being abused is too much for your program, then tell that to the children being abused." That's the only time in that entire documentary you hear anything about David Icke's ideas. Well, I went and got the biggest secret. I got out The Truth Shall Set You Free. I read it from cover to cover. I read the second one from cover to cover. I read Robots Rebellion, all the old books. I went through his back catalogue pretty quickly, actually. And then when new books came out, I read those. And I became a true, complete and utter Icke. I really did. And in a way I still am. I think I'd say David Icke has been one of the most influential people in my life. His influence on my own awareness, my own conspiratorial awareness and my paranormal UFO spiritual awareness has been enormous. His influence has been very, very significant. But I've never thought of myself as someone who just follows David Icke and nothing else. In a sense, he was kind of like the first stage of something bigger that emerged into my life. I kind of moved on from him. This is not to say I rejected the things he had taught me, but in a sense it just led me into other avenues, which is where I am now. I didn't turn against David Icke. I just moved from David Icke into other areas. It's sort of, I know a lot of people in the conspirasphere who have rejected David. I mean, the funny thing is, I went to a meetup. I joined the David Icke forum. That's one of the first things I did when I became active on the internet in the early 2000s. I joined the David Icke forum, and we had a meetup in 2007. And there's a video of it called the Glastonbury Affair. I think it's still online. Actually, it was. I can't remember what channel it's on. It's not. I might have uploaded it to my channel. I'm not sure. It's called the Glastonbury Affair. Glastonbury's misspelled. It's Glaston with an E-N rather than Glaston, which is how it should be spelled. And you can actually see me. That's the first time I'm on video. And all those things. I had another meetup in 2015 at the Barge Inn, the campsite for summer solstice. Beautiful weather. It was a lovely meetup. And the same people turned up, pretty much the same people who turned up at the 2007 meetup. But you know what? They people who were ex-forum members I'd known through the David Icke forum. There was hardly a kind word for David Icke to be said. A lot of them really turned against him. They really decided that he was bad. And I think a lot of it had to do with political problems or social problems to do with the forum, because the forum went downhill pretty badly because it was mismanaged. It was actually mismanaged by some of the same people who went on to become so infamous in the downfall of the People's Voice. That's a story for another time. But since then, I haven't actually read I haven't read any of David's last 3 or 4 books. Some people say they're repetitive. They are in a way, but I mean, each one is designed to be self-contained. That's the thing. They're not. Each one is designed to be on its own, and a standalone piece of information about David Icke and his ideas, which means they are going to repeat some of the same information. They do it, but David is very clever in the way he does it. He always presents it in a different way, with a different angle on things, with a different style. Which means the only reason I haven't read them is I think it's because I have prioritised other books above those. In a sense, I think I don't need. It's not that I've to reject the information. It's just that I don't need them anymore. I've moved beyond that, and that's not, as I said, anything David is. I'm not denigrating David in any way. And the next day, I went to see him in Newcastle. Of course, I go to see as many live shows as I can with David. I went to all the Wembley Arena events that David did. By the way, you might be able to hear a bit of background noise. I've got a dehumidifier. It's a machine to try and prevent the damp, because there's a bit of a damp problem in this room, just to let you know. Hopefully you can't hear it. It's a very quiet thing. And, well, the good news is I'm going to... I don't know how many of you will join me, but I know some of you who watch this might be going to this. David has a new documentary out called Renegade, and the premiere is in London in April, and I'm going. I'm just going to the screening, and you can get a VIP ticket, so you can go to a big event as well. That costs £60, which is too much, so I got the £30 screening ticket. But I do hope to see you there. We don't know where the venue is, of course, because because of people like Hate Not Hope and their minions and their little army of little mafia hoodlums, they can't reveal the venue where it is until just before we got to go there. But it's somewhere in London, so I can reach it, and I do hope to see you there because it'll be really, really good. I've seen the trailer of Renegade, which you might have watched, and that should be pretty good, and hope to meet some of you there. And what's more, I will do a reportage as well. I'll take me camera along and do a reportage. That should be nice. Yeah, so David Icke, somebody I don't actually agree with everything he says. I don't think that Saturn is artificial. I don't think it's the source of the Illuminati's power. The planet Saturn, I think, is a planet and nothing more. I don't think the moon is hollow either. I mean, it's I do think it's a natural object. Well, I might be wrong there, and I'm sure I'm happy to discuss it in the comments section if you want to put a comment there. But I'm very much looking forward to it, and check out the links in the description box, because I've got another video in there called "Is it cool to be anti-Icke?", which sort of goes in a bit more into this anti-Icke backlash within the conspirasphere, and I discuss it in more detail there. Alright, so I was quite pleased with that video, actually. So, well, the conclusion, I think, is David Icke is not evil. I think he's very good. I think he's a wonderful man, and I wish him all the best. I really, really do. And the very fact that someone so good could be called evil is an indication that the mainstream world has its priorities completely back to front. Thank you for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Porter's pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.